This is now a bourbon ASMR channel. I don't know if that actually got picked up, but happy Thursday, everybody. Cracked open a little Jack Daniel's Bonded here because, oddly enough, my stomach's been bugging me a little bit today. So I was like, no high proof whiskey today. And, I was going to go Scotch because I have lots of, lower proof Scotch. But obviously, we're talking horse racing. So it's got to be bourbon, right? Bourbon or rye. And then I realized that the lowest proof bourbon I have on hand is, this is Jack Daniel's Bonded, which is 100 proof. Is by all intents and purposes bourbon, but Tennessee whiskey, blah blah blah, all that stuff. Realize that I probably need to pick up something a little bit lower proof on days I don't want to just completely burn my throat. Speaking of burning his throat, Mark, I don't know where I was going with that, but and that could have gone 9 million different ways. That was probably pretty bad transition, but hey, we'll roll with it. Mark.
Yeah, given your current state of affairs with your gambling, your transitions are on about the same level.
This is atrocious. What's been happening? Atrocious.
I'm having a great day, but you got on and you're like, yeah. So I played a pick 4 that I lost the first leg on. That turned into a pick 5 that lost the first leg on. Turned into a pick 4 that I lost the first leg on. Turned into a pick 3 which I lost the first leg on. Then I went on to the next pick 5 which I lost the first leg on. And I was like, Josh, maybe you should take a break, buddy.
Possibly, but we're gonna bring in a man who I've actually call him low proof on the streets. It's Matthew DeSantis. How you doing, Matthew?
I'm doing well. That's a new nickname for me, and I like it. And so, sorry that I am the lesser DeSantis from what Steven in the chat was expecting. Expecting my long lost relative Ron, the governor of Florida, but alas, I will have to do for today. So thrilled to be here, thrilled to talk to you guys about Pegasus, and this is going to be a lot of fun. And hopefully we'll get Josh back on the right track.
I don't know. You know what actually I think started my downfall was I went on Chase's podcast and Chase just talked the heater up so high, and I think that he just talked it out of existence.
That sounds like something he would do.
Yeah. And what's really funny is, our friend Stephen Fox in here, the heater started because I sent him a Christmas gift. So I sent him a nice little gift card to his favorite pizza place, and he wasn't expecting it. And after that, dude, it just the heater started. And I even at some point tried to send him another gift card to see if that would help. That did not help. I sent him some League of Legends skins. That didn't help. Caleb tried the same thing as well. Caleb and I we split a FloCal entry last weekend, and we were feeling pretty good. And we were donating to the Buddha over there, and did not pay off. But John's on the right track here. He said, hey, it's a Gulfstream weekend, which means Caleb is not here. So it just so happened Pegasus weekend. Caleb actually was traveling for work, so he's out in Houston. He was actually talking about, and I was actually talking about flying down as well to play that Sam Houston contest, until we realized that we were going to be playing into a pool that was probably going to be 95% of the contest players with the way that things are currently set up there. So, I know we were talking a little bit offline about the sad state that is Texas racing right now. Andrew Champagne went on a nice long rant talking about Texas racing on drinking champagne. So, yeah, it's a shame. We should be talking about that this weekend, but
Mhm.
instead, we got a pretty interesting Pegasus card. I think I'm actually really excited to talk about this card. I talked some of these races with Andrew on kind of a surface level last night,
Mhm.
but I think we'll do a little bit deeper dive here, and I'm interested to see where you guys kind of land. Now,
Josh, I have a horrible
yes,
feeling that we're going to be on about 3 of the same horses.
I mean that might happen,
And
and
one of them, one of the one horse who is in the Pegasus, we are both going to have a love affair with. But
yeah. I mean, we'll see. I was actually thinking about reaching out to Rennie just to talk about the Pegasus card since we would be in the same horse there. But yeah, before we kind of get into the racing, this is
Mhm.
something that we were talking about last night a little bit. Andrew is very much on the um, like, yes, the Pegasus is a good betting race, but I mean, there's no star power. Like, where are the horses at? And
Right.
I tried to make the argument. I'm like, look, like if you got 12 of the top, I don't know, 25 or 30 older horses in training in a race, like that's a grade one at this point. Who are you missing? Can you name me, 20 horses that should be in this field that aren't in here? And he made the comment, well, not ones that haven't retired yet.
Mhm.
And I just think that by attrition, this is a grade one field. I mean, how do you guys kind of feel just looking at that field? Matthew, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I agree with your assessment that it is kind of the best of what you could possibly expect for this time of year down in Florida. I mean, there's not a lot else out there in the country that you would say, well, I can't believe they didn't fly in or that they didn't fly in. I mean, Baffert's bringing somebody in. I mean, you have, these horses, you have that South Florida circuit with Simplification and Skippy and White Abario. And then you have, Cyberknife come in for his final race. And I think it's important to point out, you're right, it lacks star power. Last year, after Nick's going Life is Good, who the hell else was in that race? I mean, is Stiletto Boy, who's 30-1 this year on the morning line? I mean, Sir Winston. I mean, that's kind of where we were going last year. So I think it's fair to say there's not star power, but I also think it's fair to look back at when there was star power and go, yeah, there was no depth. I mean, last year was so chalky at Gulfstream on Pegasus Day because you had these huge names that just dominated a lot of these races. This year, I feel like it's the complete opposite, where I feel like so many of these races are wide open and you can get real legitimate value, and you're not trying to talk yourself into beating a favorite. That seems pretty invincible.
yeah, it becomes that conversation of, do you want a card which has the big name, star power horses, or do you want a good betting card? This is a phenomenal betting card. If you are a player and you enjoy, things like taking a look at horizontal sequences, you have to love this card. This card is just so much fun. It's lacking star power because all the star power is in the shed, and this is
Mhm.
what's left over of some divisions. I don't think we've seen that older horse or older dirt division. We haven't seen that next star. We haven't seen that next up and coming horse. And the 3-year-old crop, the best of the best, is in the shed. So it lacks that big name star power. Doesn't mean it's not a great betting race. I think you can make a case in the Pegasus for, I don't know, easily 4 or even 5,
Mhm.
horses that make a lot of sense on top, and that's a much better betting product than what we had last year.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the way I came at it. But Andrew was on the warpath last night. I had to talk him down. He was still riding the high of winning a Beamy Award 2 years after the fact. Um, and yeah, it was tough. Mark, I know. Normally you comment on how great the episode the night before was. You did not message me today, so I'm guessing that Andrew's incessant beaming was a little over the
No,
top.
I mean, it was good. I always Andrew always puts on one real good, 5 or 10-minute rant in those shows, which is kind of must listen TV or must listen whatever YouTube or whatever you want to refer to it as. It was, and he did his thing. It's a card that I was trying to handicap while I was listening to you guys cover, so might not have paid as much attention to it as I would have normally. It was good. It was good. It was solid. But I don't know. I started to sometimes miss the California, fair circuit discussion. So
Yeah. but slightly better than the California Fair. Got a little Gulfstream Park here. I think Caleb might prefer to play the California Fair at this point, but he's not here, so he can't stop us. So we're gonna take a look at the late pick 5. Maybe we'll take a look at the other 2 stakes races if we get through these kind of quick. I know. I haven't capped the entire card, but I did take a quick peek at the 2 other stakes that aren't in the pick 5, and they were interesting. I saw some value in there. Matthew, I know that you're a big stable duel guy. I think race 8 is going to have a nice little, I think, stable duel play in there. In a horse I think is going to take a little bit of money. Maybe. I mean, that's what happened last year at the Charlestown card. A horse I thought was really great play and then took all the money. But we'll talk about that maybe a little bit later. But race 9, the William McKnight here, going 1.5 miles, grade 3, and I'm so glad Caleb's not here, because Caleb would probably just not let me hear the end of it. Guys, I think I'm betting Channel Maker again.
Oh, Jesus Christ! All right.
I think this is. I mean, I know Channel Maker's 0 for 5 at Gulfstream Park, but and what there, Matthew. Yeah, take a sip. Low proof. Let's go. I don't know. I've watched a bit of not Fairgrounds, but Gulfstream, and the turf has been very speed favoring, and I'm just looking at this race, and I think Channel Maker just kind of gets out there on the front end, does his thing, does the thing he does, going 1.5 miles, which is get on the front end and win a graded stakes every year. I know he's 9 years old, but I mean, his last race, the BC Turf, I mean, that speed figure comes in here and, I mean, fits. I mean, I don't know. I have a hard time looking past Channel Maker in this spot. The only other horse that I was a bit interested in, and what was the Todd Pletcher horse, the 4 Aban. But I kind of feel like I've bet this horse every time that this horse has run since his last win, and I just haven't gotten there. He went off at was it 3-2 last time in this race, and is coming back. So I don't think you're going to see 5-1. I mean, he's a 6-year-old, and at 6, this is really when these turf horses are kind of at their peak. So, he was campaigned kind of weird. They put him in those couple of that 2 mile race, the Belmont Gold Cup, and I don't know if they just didn't know what they want to do with him. He came back, ran 1 mile and 16th, and just didn't really do much. But I think he's got back races that absolutely win this race. The Pan American, I think that race wins here. He got beat by Gufo, and especially with a speed favoring track like Gulfstream's been, I think Aban is going to definitely have a bit of a pace advantage in this race. I just think Channel Maker's better. I'm glad that Caleb's not here to hear me say this. But Matthew, where did you kind of land here?
Yeah, so it's funny because Mark and I were talking right before you stepped in about, do you play a race because you just don't like any of the horses, or do you play it because you really do have a strong opinion about a horse? And for this one, I just didn't like the top 3 choices at all. I don't like Channel Maker, who just doesn't win at Gulfstream Park. And I don't like Aban because, like you, I have used him in a lot of different spots over the last year and just come up empty and been disappointed. And sometimes it's been the trip, but other times it's been just not being able to get it done, not just being not good enough. I do not trust Temple whenever he's at a lower price. When he's at 23-1, he'll run his eyeballs out. And when he's at 3-1, he'll finish 11th. So as a result, I kind of ended up on Value Engineering, who the number 9 horse, who I don't love necessarily, but that last time out, granted it was on the synthetic, it was kind of the first time doing these kind of longer races, going 1 mile and 5/8, and was closer up to the lead. I mean, and Josh, I agree with your point that the turf at Gulfstream is speed favoring, absolutely. And I thought that last trip showed that Value Engineering can be a little bit more forwardly placed when you're stretching him out, and showed the ability to finish. Granted, it was on the Tapeta and would have to do this on the turf at Gulfstream, but at 8-1, you're at least getting a fair value, I think, for this horse. And I just can't really trust many of the other horses or feel good about putting a bet in on any of these other horses. And like I said, kind of ended up on the 9 by default. But that's kind of where I ended up. So I'm interested what Mark kind of ended up in this one.
Yeah, no, I ended up on 2 horses in here. First one is a horse that Matt already mentioned, and that's Temple. Temple was second in this race last year. I realize he's winless going this trip, but he does really like Gulfstream. He's 5 for 15 lifetime. So this has been like the only track he apparently wins at. And this time of year, he seems to kind of bring his A game. So he's definitely been off form, all through the back half of last year. Got a refresher, and he's done pretty well historically coming fresh off the bench. So I don't necessarily know if this is the trip he wants, but I just have so many questions about other players that are in this race that I thought he was a little interesting. And the horse that I landed on is sort of a new face among this group, and that is the 3-horse Pi Alto, I guess that's how you would say it. Um, you know, Son of Galileo, so the distance pedigree should be there. And I pulled a stat,
Grandson of Galileo.
or sorry, grandson of Galileo. And so the pedigree should be there. And I pulled a stat on Graham Motion, and I realized it's somewhat limited sample size, but Graham Motion the last 3 weeks is hitting it like 45% on the turf. He had a winner out at Santa Anita. He's getting Frankie Dettori up here. That winner at Santa Anita was with Frankie. I would imagine Frankie's coming in here because he wants to get in the winner's circle a couple times at Gulfstream. And, this is a horse that kind of seems to be finding some better form. I think the stretch out should help this one a bit. And it's a horse that I'm getting 8-1 in a field that I kind of think is suspect. Palo probably needs to take a little bit of a step forward, but I think the stretch out just may really help him. So I thought he was an interesting fresh face in a field of horses that I just don't really like.
Yeah, I'll give you another kind of really big price that I think is interesting in this race, and that's the number 5, Agatar, at 20-1 on the morning line. This is a horse that could not have had a more horrendous start last time out. I really thought they were going to lose Leperoux at the gate. The horse reared up as soon as the gate opened. Almost lost the rider. It was just an abysmal. If you're into watching race replays, it was just an abysmal first furlong, and the horse just had no shot at winning at all. But before that, this horse had won at 2 miles. This horse, the longer it goes, the better. This horse is a marathoner through and through. This horse has run against good company over in England. Has run against horses like Pearls Galore, Kyprios. Has run against nice horses over there and came out of a nice barn over there. And 20-1. And it's important to point out that H. Allen Jerkins was taken off the turf and shortened up. And so a lot of things got changed at the last second on the day of that race. And so this was a horse that took a ton of money. It was, I want to say, like 12-1 on the morning line, got bet all the way down to basically 5-2. And so there was a lot of action on this horse. I think second time back now at Gulfstream Park, willing to maybe take a shot with using this horse underneath in some way. Absolutely is going to be a closer, and we'll see how much it can close. But I just, that last effort was just so bad that it can't possibly be that bad again. And I just think in a race where there are some questions with horses stretching out, I know this one doesn't have any issues with going the distance.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you were putting that horse on top,
no, not at all.
Okay, of the 3 for 33 lifetime. But if you're underneath, I love it as an underneath play. Yeah.
So I'm sorry that you're all alone on Channel Maker Island, Josh.
Yeah, hey, you know what? Like sometimes you just gotta stick your neck out for the chalk, which is usually not my forte. But I don't know. I just think that's going to be one of these horses on the front end. So Channel Maker and a little bit of Aban, I think, in this spot. I know Road Warrior is probably the biggest Channel Maker fan in the history. So he's just got Josh in all caps here.
I gotta ask with Aban, what do you make of this horse's last 4 races? He just kind of hasn't been anywhere. Are you just hoping that I don't know, second off the break, and they got him a little vacation, and he takes a step,
Yeah, I'm just
finds
hoping
his prior form.
I'm hoping he gets lost on the board, and that he provides some type of value on some of his back races. But yeah, I think that's it's like I said, it's more of a speculative pick, right? Than it is and like at 5 to 1, I don't know if you necessarily want to take that speculative
Yeah.
pick, but the horse has proven himself at this distance at this track. So um,
He's your defending champion in this race, and my thought was, and I guess I don't hate him here. My thought
Mhm.
was I need more like 8 or 9 to 1 on him to be really interested in him. I just thought the price on a horse that I think he's got quite a few question marks at this point. It seemed like coming out of this race last year, you expected him to be a major player in this distance turf division or marathon turf division, and he just never showed it again. So yeah. And the thing is that last out there, that first off the break race, beginning of December, you really hope that was a lot more than what it was. That was a pretty poor effort with all the class relief in the world. So
yeah. All right, let's move on here to race 10. By the way, Mark, I did play that double, so we'll see if this
and because they're
this
loading in the
continues.
gate at Delta, I really like if you plan like a 4/29 double here. So
Oh, you're playing something at Delta?
oh, of course I am.
What can I mush? You like the 4?
Yeah, they just pop the gates.
No, that's fine.
I thought the 4 was pretty much a single here. So we're not doing our contest tonight, or else I was gonna try to mush and play hard and chase you down. But
Yeah, yeah, this has not been a good day of betting. So we will. I won't even mention the double I just played at Turfway because it might cause people to vomit. Fred Hooper, race 10 here. We're gonna be going a mile on the dirt. Mark, where did you kind of land here?
I had a absolutely immeasurably hard time with this race because I didn't know what to do with a ton of players in here. I ended up with 4 A's, which, I know everybody talks about me being defensive and being these crazy spready tickets. For me, that's an aberration. That's not something. Yeah. That's not something that happens very often. And that's what I ended up doing here. There's a, is it done beeping yet? Okay.
Sorry, my water is like in front of my soundboard, so like I was like trying to I got to readjust. Let me get the soundboard a little closer to me. But go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, no. I think there were a ton of players in here, and I think you have to start this race with what do you do with Miles D? Miles D off the crazy long layoff looked like an absolute monster. Something clearly didn't go quite right in the mine shaft.
Oh, sorry if I'm
yeah. You do realize Chad Brown's 34% off the greater than 180-day layoff. This one cuts back to a mile, which I think is an absolutely perfect distance for Miles D. Where he broke his maiden at. And, Chad is very good on these long layoffs. Chad Brown spots them really well. And I thought, if you can kind of ignore the long layoff. And I mean, again, a long layoff into a stakes race is different than a long layoff into, getting an optional claiming or an allowance prep in the way. I thought that, Miles D here makes, all the sense in the world. In especially given kind of the race complexion that you should have here, where there should be quite a bit of pace up front. Looks like there's 3 or 4 need the lead types. Miles D is going to be able to sit Joe Rosario, who's about the best, closing jockey in the world. Going to be able to sit there, watch what's happening in front of him, pick his spots, hopefully bide his time and invent a good trip. Now, just is Miles D ready to fire off the long layoff? I don't want to talk all my horses, so I'll toss it over to one of you guys, but there's a bunch of others, and then we can loop back to whoever I have left.
Matthew, please tell me you don't like Miles D here.
I like Miles D a lot. He's my top pick actually in this run. And so it's the same thing. I just think the race sets up really well for him. And for all the reasons Mark said, like the 3, 7, and 8 are all going to go gangbusters out front. And I mean, this is one where I also don't mind the inside rail on that mile shoot. It's different than if it was 7 furlongs or 6 furlongs. And so he's going to have plenty of room to maneuver. And to Mark's point, Rosario can take him kind of mid-pack and just sit him there. Ground saving trip is a 13-horse field. People are going to get hung out wide in this field. And he's going to be able to have a ground saving trip, I think. Rosario is going to weave his way through traffic like he usually does, except for when he doesn't. And I like Miles D a lot in this spot. I will give you another horse that I think is interesting. which is funny. I just mentioned how wide people might be. I actually like the 13 horse 12 volt man a little bit. This is a horse that is a closer as well. And again, the pace I think sets up nicely for 12 volt man. So I think that if you're looking for value, if you go Miles D off the bench, I'm not going to buy it. This is a horse that is going to give you value at 8-1 and is going to give you an honest price at post time, I think, as well. If he can take back a little bit, and I mean, he doesn't need the lead, so it's not like he's going to get stuck 5 wide. So he can just kind of take it easy and then go from there. So, I really like that 13 a bit. Maybe more of an underneath play for me because I like Miles D up top, but I do think 12 volt man has some potential.
Yeah, I landed on 12 volt man as one of my picks here. It does look like we're about 2 minutes from Turfway. And
by the way, my 4-1 at Delta. Just
your 4-1 at Delta. Is that what you wanted to point out?
Just right now, no.
I got the 2-8-12 here at Turfway. I got an exacta box, and I got some doubles going into the next race. I thought the two kind of look sneaky to me here a little bit. Is 18 right now, 18-1 right now off a 5-1 morning line. I'm actually going to put a little win bet on it now as well because that price is insane. I like the 13. I kind of was my second pick in the spot. I did see a lot of speed in this race. Look, if you guys want to take 3-1, 5-2 on a horse that's run once in like the last, there's one run once in this presidential administration, I mean that's all well and good. But I mean the horse, laid off, came back February 2022, ran once, ran decently, and now we haven't seen him for almost a year. I don't think the plan was to, wait all this time and run into Pegasus. Work tab does not exactly jump off the page to me. I'll let this horse beat me 100%. More interested in the closer like the 13. My top pick is actually the 6 Black Belt. Going to be coming up in class here, but I don't know what other figs look like. Mark, I'm sure you could tell me the buyer, but that last race on Brisnet just jumps off the page.
97 buyer.
Yeah, it's just a humongous figure. And this horse, if you kind of go back through his PPs, it has shown the ability to come from off the pace. And on top of it, what I do like is 2-back horse 1, and was really on what seemed to be a fairly hot pace, going 23-1, 45-1, going a mile, and was able to still finish. The horse that ran second came back and won next time out. So I don't know. I think those two races there, very impressive. I think this is a horse that's on the up and up here. Gets IRAD aboard. IRAD probably could have taken any single mount in this race if he wanted to. So, I really like Black Belt here. I don't think we get 6-1. I'm guessing that this horse is going to take a bit of money, especially it's going to take a bit of Gulfstream money. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised this horse ends up as like your second choice after Miles D. But I like the 6 as my top pick here, and I like a little bit of the 13 that Matthew kind of already mentioned.
I would say there's 2 other horses that I did like in here that you guys haven't mentioned, so I'll mention them both quickly. One of them is the 3 Mish, one of the Safi entrants. If this track is playing very, very speed favoring, he should make the front end. I think he's the fastest horse early, and he's inside drawn. I would assume they're going. I don't think they really have any other option with him, and there's a chance he could get real brave on the front end. Seems like he likes a mile. The mile on the 16th last out was a little bit further than he wants to go, I would imagine second off the layoff, he should be really pointed towards this race. points. He absolutely loves Gulfstream, 4 for 7 here, lifetime. And I think all systems are probably go on him. It's just a matter of, is he good enough? The other horse I thought was interesting was the other Safi horse, which is the 7, picking up pennies. Josh sort of mentioned the 6, but he didn't mention the reason that I really like the 6, and that's the reason I really like the 7. I really like horses that are in really good form, and then they've been winning a lot recently. Both the 6 and the 7 are on 3 race win streaks. I realize this is a step up in class, but anytime you see a horse that's really getting it done, and both of them kind of have, improving patterns, they've been getting a little faster as they go along. I think you could see one of these horses jump up and steal this. I don't think there's any monsters in here, and it's a grade 3, so it's not the biggest step up in the world from an optional 62. So I thought the 8, picking up pennies with Jose up, again, another horse that makes a lot of sense in this field of what I think is a pretty gosh darn wide open affair.
What I'll say is, just to add to your point about the 3, Timeform US, that's the horse that actually has the second highest overall career speed figure is the 3. So definitely something to like there. I definitely took a long look at this one at 6-1, and I think you'll get better than 6-1, honestly, because I think other horses will take money, even though it is a Safi horse. So yeah, I like that 3 quite a bit. And you're right. I mean, that's something on these big days. I always tell people, pay attention to these early races and how front end speed holds up. Do they have this track souped up or not? I mean, I just remember being at Pimlico and watching like the early sprint races on the Preakness card. And I was like, oh, well, early voting is going to win this race. Like I didn't like early voting until I watched somebody go like 21:43 and still win. And I was like, oh, well, then I guess we're going to go with early voting. So, it's important to watch on these big days.
I would say one other thing that would make me like, and again, I can coin flip. It doesn't really matter between picking up pennies or Mish. Would be if Safi scratches one of these 2 out. Right now he's got 2 of the 3 speeds in this race. If he scratches one of these out, I would imagine that it moves the other horse up substantially as that horse ends up. You kind of know what he's doing, and you assume, okay, I don't want my 2 horses to get into a speed duel, so I'm going to put the one in this race that I think has the best chance of winning, and I will find another spot for the other one. So if you see something like that happen, to me it moves, and it doesn't matter which one it is, it moves the other one up. But I would imagine my gut is Mish stays in of the 2 of them. I think that's your more likely runner here.
Yeah, honestly, my biggest issue with the 7, I did look at the 7 a bit. I just think it's gonna be a casualty of the pace. I just think that there's too much speed here. I'm gonna want one that's gonna kind of get first run on these, and that's kind of why I landed on the 6. But of the speed horses, I thought the 7 was probably the most interesting of the horses that in here. So yeah, so I completely agree with you, Mark. If one of these horses ends up scratching out, I definitely think it's a play for the other one. I prefer the 7, I think, of the 2 speed horses, but.
Yeah, and to answer Mike's question, I think at morning line, I would be fine win betting Mish at that price. I think 6-1 for me is more than fair, especially given the history of how Gulfstream tends to play on big days.
Cool. Let's move on here to race 11 here, the Pegasus World Cup Filly and Mare Turf Invitational. This is a field of 9. Your 9-5 favorite is Shantasara here for Chad Brown and Irad Ortiz Jr. Matthew, where did you kind of land here?
So I landed on a horse that I have really liked, and I'm a sucker for this horse ever since she made her debut actually in North America, which is the number 3 Wakanaka. I've always liked this horse a lot. Everybody left the Breeders' Cup after Flightline demolished the world. And I stuck around for that fall harvest, gosh darn it, because it was a good race, and I wanted to cash my win bet on Wakanaka, and I did. And so I just feel she fits really well here in that I don't really like Shantasara coming off of a subpar effort, coming off the layoff, drawing the far outside. I think Delika gets some pace pressure from the 1 on the inside potentially. And if Delika gets pressured, then she's not the same horse. And so I kind of just ended up on the 3 as a result. And it was already a horse that I like a lot. And I just think she has a really good kick. She's not going to be intimidated by this field, obviously. She's run against better competition before, for sure. She ran in this race last year, and I think it was a better edition of this race last year. She's run against the boys, 2 back in the Woodbine Mile. So I just, she has the kind of pedigree and background to make me think that she's going to be really strong in this race. And so that's kind of where I went with Wakanaka as my top choice in the Pegasus Philly Mare Turf Invitational.
Yeah, I am probably the world's biggest Delika fan. She's been a horse that I just absolutely love. She's been good to me. I've been on the winning side of her multiple times. She's been very well to me. But I hate the pace setup here. I think I get both. I get doubled. Wow.
Well, I thought you were going to pick Delika, but
no, I am not going to pick Delika. No. I think she's. I think she's really pace compromised in this spot. I ended up on the 6, Queen's Goddess. Given the pace scenario, Louis is going to be able to. He has enough tactical speed to be involved early. Queen's Goddess is 2 for 3 going this trip, 5 of 10 lifetime. Horse that likes to win, likes to get her photo taken, and this is kind of the right distance. I think Louis is going to have some speed up front. He's going to be able to sit there, watch that, take over top of the stretch. He'll get first run on those speeds. And, I think Queen's Goddess, of the, probably 3 or so likelies in here, is the one I'm most interested in.
Josh, where's your A? There it is.
There it is. Hey, Josh, it's only an E7 though. Can you bet E7s?
That's so. Funny story is E7 is actually the 2.5 cherry, so the stem's gone, but E7 is definitely in. I don't know, man. I have a hard time seeing how Delika doesn't just get on the front end and just go here. I know there is the other pace. Well, this is something that Andrew mentioned to me last night, and he's curious what the 1 is going to do.
I think the 1's going to go. I don't think that's. I think that's the only option for the 1.
What other option do they have but to go?
Yeah, I'm really. I guess I kind of capped this, and I didn't know what to do with this horse. Stretching out. Coming from synthetic onto the grass, what's going to happen with this one? The 1 is just the cheapest of speeds in this spot. I don't know. I think that Delika can still kind of work out a trip here and try and go wire to wire here. But I'm less confident today than I was yesterday. And that was because of, Andrew kind of brought that to my attention. Mark, you seem to think that, the 6 here, which has shown a bit of speed. I just don't think has shown as much speed as Delika has in the past. 48 and 4, go at Santa Anita is, it's not necessarily blazing there. And I don't know. I just fade these West Coast turf horses anytime they come over east, even if it is Florida. So I kind of just toss this horse based off of coming from the West Coast. Maybe I'm being too dismissive of the 6 Queen Goddess, but of the speed horses, I definitely wanted Delika, especially like I said, if the 1 scratches out or anything like that. I think it's a clear cut play.
Yeah, I will.
I agree with that.
If the 1 comes out of here, my top pick completely changes. It's all Delika.
Yes.
I think we can all agree though that nobody wants to touch this 9 with a 10-foot pole, right?
Correct. I don't.
Mark, I don't know. Did you see Mark's face?
Mark took a deep breath. Mark
took a real deep sigh. I don't like that.
I don't think this is the spot. I
she's got races, but yeah, it's just not.
She has races that fit here. But she's going to be substantially overbet. I think her chances of winning, the value proposition given her chances of winning, is just not good enough to take her at what's going to be probably 9-5. I think that's probably what she goes off at. She has races, but I don't know. Why is she here versus other places? This is just probably Chad trying to find a softer spot, and no, I don't love her.
She's also never won off a layoff.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's that, and I will say the horse that I'm a little bit interested in, and I'm more of an underneath in terms of a vertical, but the 7 Lady Rockstar is interesting to me. Second back from a layoff and a pretty substantial layoff, and ran really well in that Suwannee River, and just came up short against Stolen Holiday, but showed a little bit of burst, and actually it was probably best effort since coming over to America. I was like Tyler on the turf at Gulfstream. I think he runs it pretty well. Brendan Walsh's barn is super streaky, but I just, I don't know. I think there's something there with this horse. I think she can put in a good trip, especially if there's that pace scenario of the 1 and the 2, maybe going a little fast up front, and then she's got something to really close into. So I thought it's 6-1. I probably would want like 10-1 to play her to win, or maybe even like 12-1. But I think underneath she might be an interesting play if you're locked into a horse like Dalika or Wakanaka or something like that.
I will say one thing about the 9 Shantasara. It does get the biggest jock upgrade you could possibly get, going from a French jockey to Irad Ortiz Jr. So there's been a declaration, I believe, that all French jockeys are the same now. There was a slight time where Flavien Prat might have been something. However, if you've watched Santa Anita at all,
it's rough.
He's just 2023 Julian Leparoux. That's it,
dude.
They slapped a new year on that model. They didn't make any changes.
He is wonderful at Santa Anita right now because he is the world's biggest takeout reducer.
And
you
he's
just
still
toss
taking all the
everything.
money.
He takes all the money, and he's like a 7% jock. It's hilarious. It's like, this isn't 2021 Santa Anita, and no one's figured it out yet.
Yeah,
assume eventually the public will wise up to it. But the thing is, and he's getting the same level of choice mounts he always got. He's just doesn't care. He's Wednesday Irad every day.
And you know what the funny thing is that I'm sure John was a little worried that we hadn't bashed a jockey, and 42 minutes into the stream, there you go.
We're gonna bash a jockey who's not even running it.
Yeah, he's not even here.
He's not even here, and we're gonna bash.
Yeah, he's
that bus coming.
A different time zone. He's in a different zone.
By the way, Mark, don't think that I didn't notice that you just took the Frankie Dettori horse that earlier race, and just that's the only reason you picked that horse. All right, let's not kid ourselves here.
No, I just think Grand Motion tends to be a bit of a streaky barn, and right now Grand Motion's barn seems to be firing on all cylinders. So I've seen him win with a couple of horses that did not make the most sense. Horses that, because I was playing Santa Anita for FloCal, and horses that I had a hard time getting to, and they're winning. And when those kind of things start happening, I just take note that a barn is really firing right now.
Really? That was totally the wrong button, but we're gonna leave it. Race 12, the Pegasus World Cup Turf Invitational here. You got a nice, I think you got a really, really great field. I think this is a really, really fun race. I had a great time talking about this race last night. You got 12 horses in here. You got 2 AEs, and I landed on a horse that's near and dear, I think, to Mark's heart, if I remember correctly. Maybe not.
I'm concerned because there's no horse in here that's near and dear to my heart.
Mark, I thought you were a huge fan of the 6 Lady Spitesphere.
No, that's not me. No, not me.
Is it the other horse? Who's the other horse? The other was it Roger Atfield horse? No, maybe I'm misthinking. Why did I think you liked this horse?
Moira? Are you talking about that?
No, I do like Moira. I do have a Moira thing.
Maybe I thought you loved this horse for some reason, Mark.
Well, I did like Lady Spitesphere, but that was when she was at Tampa last year when she won me a qualifier to get into something. So.
That's what it was. Yeah, Tampa. Yeah. Yeah.
That was a long time ago.
Was it last year or 2 years ago?
Maybe it was 2 years ago. That was with Emma up at. They shipped her across to Tampa in a stakes race that she won. So.
Yeah. I love Lady Spitesphere in this spot. I think this is gonna be my top pick in here. Her coming in here racing against the boys. I mean, she could have ran in the filly and mare turf, decides to pick this this spot instead, and I just think that she gets out there on the front end. I didn't really see a ton of speed in this race, and you know, I think that there is a big takeout reducer in this spot, and yeah, I don't know. I just think that she's got a really good shot to just get out there and just go, and if for some reason like this is I'm kind of attacking this the same way as I attacked the other turf race. I want two horses, and I want two horses that are going to be on the front end. The one is Lady Spitesphere, and the other one is a horse that I believe probably owes me money because I could have sworn I bet this horse every time this horse has run, and that's a 3 Atone. And yeah, I just think that if for some reason the 6 doesn't go, the 3 is going to get there on the front end, and I've just seen enough races here at Gulfstream that I just want someone that's going to be forwardly placed. And heck, Atone could maybe just sit just off the 6 and maybe still win. Maybe I backdoor into a little first run move there. But yeah, I'm going to take the 2 speed horses here. I'm going to take the 3 Atone. I'm going to take the 6.
Shocking.
I'm going to take the 6 Lady
Josh is
Spitesphere.
taking the
And
speed
yeah, I'm
horses.
taking the speed horses, exactly. Let's go speed. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm playing too into what I've seen at Gulfstream, but yeah. You see, Mike saying huge play against Ivar.
Yeah.
Where is the button here? We got the I think Ivar here. Take up reducer. I think 5-2 on this horse is just absolutely criminal. This is a miler, all right, and there is a humongous difference going from a mile to a mile and an eighth here. That extra furlong is just going to be absolute death to Ivar. So if you're going to bet Ivar in this spot, I think you're going to be flying a little too close to the sun there, and your wings are going to get burned. Mark,
Yeah,
that's a reference. That's a reference to mythology, in case you needed to know.
Yeah.
So I feel like we need a timestamp on this video, and not because of like how far into it we are, but because just before I hopped on with you guys, I finished recording my Capping the Card episode, which is going to drop tomorrow. And in my cap episode, my top pick was the number 6, and my top value play was the number 3. And I see this race exactly the same way Josh does. I really dislike the 10 for the reasons that you just outlined. I think the extra furlong is the end. And the 12 City Man, who had a nice Fort Lauderdale, is somewhere in Anchorage, Alaska in post 12. And so I don't like that either. So I think Lady Spitesphere, the thing I like about Lady Spitesphere is that she's shown that she can rate, and that she showed she doesn't need to be in the lead. So if Atone does go out and set the early pace, or if one of the other, if there is kind of another early speed horse, Lady Spitesphere has demonstrated the ability to sit third, fourth, and still be in the proposition, as we talked about in the previous turf race, still be in the right position at the top of the stretch to be able to go and get kind of first jump on everything. I've liked Lady Spitesphere. She made me a ton of money at the Bessarabian a couple of years ago, and I've always been a big fan of hers. And Atone, I tell you, we sometimes we'll talk about Stable Duel. There is not a better Stable Duel horse in America than Atone, who comes in honest every single time at a big price on the morning line. And I don't know why people on the morning line insist on making this horse 12-1, 15-1, 20-1 every single time he runs. But I'm thrilled because I will use him in every horse racing contest and get points, because he always runs an honest race. And I think he absolutely has a shot to come up big here. And he came up just short last year too, and I think a saltier field. So I saw it the same way as you, Josh. So but I was not influenced by you. I came to this independently.
No, I really do think I really think Atone's in here with a big shot. If you look back, he's run this distance 3 times. Was won once, which was the last race. Come in second once, which was in the Fort Lauderdale, and then ran an honest 4th. By a length and 3/4 to a couple of horses
in this race last year.
Yeah, in this race last year, to a couple of horses that if they were sound and healthy in here, would be really short. And Colonel Liam, Never Surprised, and Space Traveler. Those were three really solid horses last year at this time. Atone's coming in here as a 6-year-old, and I think that this is I think this is just a really, really good spot for Atone. So, Mark, I know you're nowhere
Mark,
near
make case for
these
Ivar.
you're nowhere near these two horses. I know. It's fine, Mark. Who do you like here?
My top pick in here is a price. I agree with everything you guys said about Ivar. I'm very against Ivar. And if you go one outside of Ivar, the 11 Masterpiece,
Oh,
that is actually my top pick at a
yep.
bit of a sneaky price play. Masterpiece is a horse that if you look at his running lines, he fires his best races off a layoff. So he's getting on off a layoff here. For some reason, and I have no idea why, really smart trainers like Michael McCarthy and Chad Brown have tried to make this horse run way, way farther than he wants to go. His 1.125 races are very, very much fit in here. He's 3 for 3 going the distance, and he's 1 going 1.125 off the layoff. Safi is also very good off the trainer switch. Safi's 30% with a $2.69 ROI off the trainer switch. I think Masterpiece is just really set up to run a huge race here for Safi in Safi's backyard. In a horse that makes a lot of sense. I think this is the trip he's wanted all along. Everybody's tried to run him way too far, and that's just not what he wants to do. And I'm hopefully Gaff can kind of invent a bit of a trip. He's going to be coming from off the pace in a big field. So, and I do worry about these sort of skinny Gulfstream turf course with how it's with how it's set up. But as long as Gaff can weave his way through, I think Masterpiece has a huge shot here. And I bet you get every bit of that 10-1 morning line, if not a little bit more.
Yeah.
So I would imagine it wouldn't surprise me if he's 15-1 kind of range. So I really like Masterpiece in this spot at a bit of a price.
I will say that Safi has had a lot of success, like cheating distances on horses that other barns were misusing. That there were some instances where they were sprinters, and Safi's like, this horse needs to go 1.125 and had a lot of success. And similarly, I think you're right here of like, take this horse back. This horse doesn't need to be a marathoner. Like, what are we doing with this horse? So that's something I've noticed with Safi over the last year or so, that he's really good at placing horses at the right distance, it seems like.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think that of the horses that are coming from off the pace, the one I was most interested in, and I mentioned it last night, was Masterpiece. I want to say, what did he win? What race did he win? Like first off the layoff when he came over, was it the Manhattan?
Eddie Reed. Well, he won the Eddie Reed first off the layoff, and then he won But when he first came over, they tried to run it. They tried to run him in the 1.5 mile, the Turf Classic. Didn't win that, and he came back and won an allowance.
Yeah, but he ran really, really well. Like I could have.
Yeah, he ran really, really well.
The first 1 or 2 times, I thought that this was going to be Chad Brown's next big horse. I thought this was going to be, oh my goodness, who's the horse that won the Arlington Million?
Okay, if this 2 can get real brave at Delta, that would be really awesome.
But I thought he was going to be like a Robert Bruce type or something like that. Like a horse that came in and was going to go ahead and win some really big races.
There we go.
He won.
That'll do.
He won the Ed Reed. He ran well in the allowance, but I really think that at 7, even though he's 7, I think he's still got a little bit left in the tank. So I was interested here in the 11 Masterpiece a little bit. So,
and I will say to Sixer, who was commenting about Ivar, well, he's won at 1.16 miles. I think the 1.125 is probably a little, maybe a bridge too far. And I'll say, I also think the post position is a problem. I just, and I think we also have to look at the reality of, those races at 1.16 were at a very different level than this race in terms of caliber and quality. So it's could Ivar win a 1.125 allowance race? Sure. But I just don't think he's going to win a 1.125 grade 1 race.
Yeah, I would say that's my thing with Ivar. Ivar's best races by far have all come in a mile. When he goes to a mile and a 16th, yeah, he won a black type stakes, and he's won some sort of optional 80 kind of stuff. This is a very different field. Now, I'm not saying this is the most talented turf field that we've ever seen. It's clearly not, but it is much better than a bunch of horses I've never heard of that he was running versus in those other races.
No, I don't know. I have a hard time getting to him here. Doing the going longer. So I'm definitely going to be against here. The big one though, the race 13 here, the Pegasus World Cup Invitational. The White
Josh,
Barrio.
do you need a setup? I was going to say, because your boy, your boy White Barrio is back. He's back in his backyard. He is.
Look at this. Look at
He's
this number right
loaded
here,
and ready,
baby.
loaded and ready to go.
Look at this number right here.
Josh, tell us about your boy.
So now, yes, part of the reason why I've been waiting to bet White Barrio coming back to Gulfstream for forever, and they just have been shipping this guy everywhere, every which way except for back to Gulfstream. But what I will say is I have always thought that White Barrio does his best racing coming from off the pace. 2 back in the Pennsylvania Derby, Luis Sai has put this horse on the front end for God only knows what. And I think that finally here, there is going to be some very, very legitimate pace in this race. I think that the morning line favorite, Cyberknife here, who does like to be forwardly placed, I think is really up against it from a pace standpoint, from a post standpoint. And, I'm definitely going to let this horse beat me. This is another favorite that I'm not going to have a piece. And Mark will attest that me and him were probably the biggest Cyberknife fans last year. I remember Caleb just absolutely destroying us when both Mark and I landed on Cyberknife in the Haskell. And Caleb just ridiculed us incessantly. Who's laughing now, Caleb? You're not even here. But yeah, no, with Stiletto Boy outside of Cyberknife, with the rest of the speed inside of him, like Art Collector is gonna go, Defunded's gonna go, and I don't know. I think Cyberknife's gonna have to work out a bit of a trip, and I think that this is just gonna set up nicely for White Barrio. He's gonna be able to just let those speed horses go by, tuck in that second flight, and I think he's gonna get first run on them. So I love White Barrio in this spot. I don't know if you get 10-1. I thought I looked overseas and it varied wildly from like 5 to 6-1 up to like 12-1. So we'll see what price you end up getting on race day. But I really like White Barrio, and I do have a backup, which is the one Proxy. And I mentioned this to my co-host Andrew Champagne last night, and he kind of did a Caleb to me and just ridiculed me for the Proxy pick because he says the Clark was just a really, really bad race. And while I agree that the Clark wasn't great, this is a run style play. And if you kind of look back at Proxy's races, I mean, he hasn't run a bad race since basically the Lexington last year. He's been right there in the money every single start last year. And if you look at the speed figures, they've been pretty consistent, and they're just as good as basically anybody else is running this spot. There was a little concern maybe with the rail, but you get Joel Rosario aboard. I think I trust him to try and work out a trip here from the rail post. So my 2 horses in this race are going to be Proxy and White Barrio. Mark, where did you land?
Josh, we very much agree. White Barrio is my top choice in here. Just getting back to a track that he loves, getting back to a trip that he loves, and I think he's a major player in here. Obviously, we were both big Cyberknife fans. He makes all the sense in the world here. I would have no issues with, anybody who happened to like Cyberknife. But I agree with you. I think the pace dynamics are not as favorable for him as they were in something like the Haskell, where he really showed his best stuff. And and I don't know. I don't think he's a lot of his, a lot of the horses that have been beating him have retired. Are we landing on Cyberknife simply because he's the best of what's left, or because we really think he's, a major player in this spot? And the other horse I thought was really neat or really interesting in here, and I just don't think you get the price, is Defunded, the 5. Bob Baffert ships this one in. We all know he loves nothing more than to give a big old FU to racing on big days like this. And him showing up with with a horse that's absolutely cranked wouldn't surprise me. Defunded, especially if speed is really carrying, horse with a lot of early foot, should be able to get the lead and kind of be your controlling pace if he wants to be. And in a rad seems fit to ride. So I would imagine Defunded is really cranked here and would be no shocker to me. If I get anywhere near 6-1, that's, I would say, would be a very, very sort of good spot play in this, right here.
So I'm going to bust out some political science knowledge, and because that's my background. And so I heard somebody earlier this week say, Gunrunner broke from the 10 post with Florent Giroux and worked out a trip to win this. And I'll say what Lloyd Benson said to Dan Quayle in the 1988 vice presidential debate when he said, "You, sir, are no Jack Kennedy. Cyberknife, you, sir, are no Gunrunner." He is, it's not going to happen. So Gunrunner was like my first toss. And I just, he's a perfectly good horse. I think you're absolutely right that, like, is he, Mark, to your point, like, is he the best of what we have left? And so therefore we overvalue him maybe to an extent. And so I'm just not the biggest fan. I guess I will agree with Andrew in that I am not the biggest fan of Proxy. I think that grade 1 was really weak. And before that, I mean, he's never won a graded stakes race outside of that one. And so I now expecting him to win back-to-back grade 1s. That's a big task. I do think the trip is not bad there. But ultimately, I went with where Mark ended up, or Mark kind of finished up with his comments, was I went with Defunded. I think Baffert has the source ready to roll. I just, it's just a gut feeling. But yeah, I mean, I think he's got a big weekend because I think he's got Arabian Night in Oaklawn, and I think he's got Defunded here, and I think it's just a double fingers to the horse racing community. Yep. And he is gonna roll, and here's the thing about this is what's interesting about the early speed in this race. Riding with Biden is not really that fast. I mean, I've seen him at parks. He's not that. Art Collector is really not that fast either. I mean, if you look at Art Collector's U.S. time form pace figures, when he gets on the lead, he slows it down. I mean, he slows it way down. He is not a horse that likes getting into a duel. And so he will, I think if Defunded goes out and shows that early turn of foot, he'll take back. I don't have a lot of trust in Art Collector to kind of push a really super aggressive pace. And then Stiletto Boy is the other kind of potential speed, but he's breaking from post 11. And he's got to work out some sort of a trip there. And I think Defunded gets out in front. I think Irad knows what he did last year with Life is Good. And that's not to compare Defunded to Life is Good, but I think he knows the winning trip here at Gulfstream, and it's just to get out to that lead and go. And so he's my top pick. And what I will say is, and I agree with Mike's statement about Stiletto Boy 31 being way off. I mean, Stiletto Boy finished third to Nick's Go and Life is Good. So, I mean, I agree. There's no way he's 30-1. I wouldn't mind people playing him underneath. My underneath play is going to be my favorite horse, which is, of course, Simplification. And as much as you like White Barrio, I like Simplification. I always have thought he was the better Florida horse, and the Kentucky Derby proved me right. And maybe that's the only race that proved me right. But I think, again, he's a horse that is versatile. And I mean, maybe to some extent, Josh, the argument you made about Proxy getting the right trip, you can apply to Simplification a little bit as well. But he'll get the right trip. I think he'll sit off speed. I just think Simplification doesn't want to win. And but at 15-1, I love him as an underneath play. So he'll definitely be on my vertical exotics at a big price because I think he'll get every penny of it. And I just have a feeling that Cyberknife is going to take money, Skippy is going to take money, and White Barrio is going to take a ton of money. And so I just don't know what sort of price you're going to get on White Barrio at the end of the day.
What did you guys think of Skippy Longstocking in this spot?
He wouldn't be a
second
shock
choice.
in here.
Yeah.
You think second? He's probably third choice for me.
Yeah, I mean, he has the honestly. Jose being aboard was the biggest issue I had. If I ratted Stanford, I would probably have liked him a little bit more.
Yeah, you had to assume Arad had choice off the win last off. So, or I guess. Or was that it was Arad, right? Yeah. Arad had choice. Arad had choice off the race last out. So you got to assume he's, not riding the Baffert, whatever, to stick it to Safi, who feeds him a ton of good mounts. Yeah, I don't think Jose is a huge downgrade. I just think that Arad's kind of telling you which of the horses that he had an option to ride is the better horse.
Yeah, I had a hard time trying to figure out what to do with Skippy Longstocking.
I don't dislike the horse. The horse makes some sense.
No, same here.
This is like going to be the horse, right, that wins this race, and you go back and look at your like pick 5, and you're just like, oh yeah, that made sense. But yeah, I don't know. I had a hard time deciding what to do with that horse. I preferred the other Safi horse, obviously the 4 White Barrio, but.
What price do you think you'll get on White Barrio? I mean, honestly, because people love that horse down there.
6 to 1.
Okay.
Let me load up old odds checker here.
And by the way, while Josh is doing this, the Eclipse Awards happen to also be tonight. And oh my God. What the hell happened to the steeplechase division? I realize no one actually wants to vote on it, but a freaking horse that ran once in the United States wins at Hewick. They really gave it to Hewick over snap decision. Are you freaking kidding me?
I don't know anything about steeplechase racing.
Snap decision was robbed. I saw Aragona flipping out about it, and I had to jump in. And really,
I mean, So I have a huge problem with that. I mean, in terms of people like not voting, and I'm like, do your research, and they're like, well, my job's not to be steeplechase expert. I'm like, well, but it is, and honestly, it doesn't take that much freaking time.
You're a fan of horse racing. Watch a couple of back races, figure out what horse was the most impressive, vote for that horse. It's a 3 or 4 horse race. You got to watch 8 or 10 races. I mean, you got you vote, put in the effort.
Here's the thing that so one of my pet peeves, and listen, I should preface this by saying I'm from Philadelphia, and people from Philly hate the media because we always feel like the media is picking on our sports players. Prime example, Allen Iverson, the practice sort of nonsense. But I always think of Bill Burr's comment, which is that reporters are just nerds who interrupt people who are doing their jobs. And I
that is perfect.
I can't agree more with that statement. And I always hate like the Baseball Hall of Fame. See, just voted Scott Rowland into the Hall of Fame. Get the F out of here. And baseball writers, media people in general, take their jobs like way too seriously. And I agree with you, Mark. It's like, watch 8 races. Like, you could honestly get anybody off the street and be like, watch like 3 hours worth of film, and you tell me which of these horses is the best. And 95% of people are going to make the right decision. It's not that hard. And yet we act like, oh my God, well, I just don't know this sport at all.
I mean, Snap Decision was carrying 30-something pounds more than everybody else in that race at Saratoga, and he won for fun. It was a joke, and it's like, and I realize, going up versus Hewick, he lost, but he had a long campaign, was a very good horse all year. I don't think one race defines your. But no, I think every other thing made all the sense in the world. It was all the horses you expected. Modern
Did Epicenter win?
Yeah, horse of the year. Or sorry, Flightline won horse of the year. Epicenter won older male. Older
3-year-old male. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, 3-year-old male. Jeez. Fort won 2-year-old male. Wonder Wheel won the 2-year-old filly. 3-year-old male was Epicenter. 3-year-old filly was Nest. Older dirt male was Flightline. Older dirt female was Malthought. Male sprinter was Elite Power. Female sprinter was Midnight Olive. Like everything made sense. Male turf horse was Modern Games. Okay, whatever. I could make an argument there, but whatever. Female turf was Regal Glory over in Italian over Warlike Goddess. I completely disagree with that, but I get why people went that direction. Everything else made sense, but I think Warlike Goddess got all the disrespect in the world. I said this going into that. She did not skip the boys. She went after the boys and consistently showed that she really belonged. And to me, her 3 or so starts versus the boys is more impressive than ducking the boys all year and getting your, the races you were supposed to win. That was what Regal Glory did. To me, her campaign was more impressive. End to end, her campaign. She went after everybody.
What do you think?
She ran a hell of a Breeders' Cup too. Yeah.
What do you think the sharpest book overseas is? Skybet,
no
Bet 365.
Oh, Skybet. I use Skybet quite a bit. Yeah, that's a good one.
Skybet's got White Abario at 9-1.
Wow.
They have Bet 365 has White Abario at 10-1. The sharpest book has him 17-2. That's Betfred. But everyone's got him at 8, 9, 10-1.
So 8.5 to 10-1. Yeah. Wow.
I'll take 8-1. I was thinking 6-1. I was thinking 6-1.
Yeah. So was I.
Proxy's sitting at about 5-1. The Funded's at 7-2. Cyberknife is 2-1, 6-4. I see some places.
Yeah, I mean, Mike's saying 6-1, kind of agreeing with us. But I mean, if those books are normally, I mean, that's the sharp money, and those guys are paid to make, to put the right odds out there. So
right.
Yeah. So
that's interesting. I mean, and again, horse racing Twitter is never a good judge of how things show, because otherwise Happy Jack would not have gone off at 19-1 in the Kentucky Derby. But there's just a lot of love for White Abario on horse racing Twitter, and just a lot of people love him down in South Florida. A lot of people love C2 Stables, and for all the right reasons too. But it's I just think there's going to be a ton of money flowing into that horse. So we'll see.
Yeah. We got 20 minutes, so I figured we'd maybe just touch on these other graded stakes races. Matthew, I know you just did capping the card, so I know you got them capped. Mark, I'm sure you can cap them. Okay. What was it race 6? Yeah, race 6. The La Priviante here, 1.5 miles on the turf. I thought that this was an interesting race. It really just depends on what you think of adventuring. On where you could kind of go, and I guess my just contrarian nature is just like, all right, well, we'll just toss this horse if it's 7-5 on the morning line. And I see Luis Saez on a speed horse on the turf, and I feel like I've seen this movie before. So yeah, I landed on Beside Herself here. It was shocking. E8 horse on the turf with Luis Saez aboard that I end up on this horse. But, if you go 3 back, going 1.5 miles or 4 back at Saratoga, I mean, that race beats anything that adventuring has run on the Brisnet scale. They did try going, they kept trying to wire these races here with Flavian Pratt aboard. It seemed like they were getting a little bit more pace pressure. Not really sure what happened that last race. Maybe we just argue that, either needed one or just didn't like the synthetic. But, I don't know. I think that... Go ahead, Mark.
I was just gonna say that was a race that was taken off the turf. I think she just really wants turf. My take there was that she didn't necessarily love the synthetic, which is something that does, it does happen. You're getting a massive jock upgrade. I realize it's a second time Louis, but it's first time Louis on, back on the right surface. I think when you look at this race, at least how I looked at it, Adventuring's got some real gaudy figures, but I don't know if Adventuring wants to go this far. And I think you can make an argument that there's a lot of horses in here that are a little bit suspect going this trip. Besides Herself has a win going this. So I know she can get the distance, which is not something I necessarily know with the rest of this field. So no, I land on the same horse as you, Josh. Louis controlling pace on the turf, going a distance. Yeah, sign me up.
Yes, I ended up. I agree with you about Adventuring being kind of a big question mark. I ultimately went with the second choice, personal best, and for Shug McGahee with Irad aboard. And this is a horse that I think kind of had the same issue, which is force who ran into the synthetic at the Tropicana Oaks, and but the race before that, Aqueduct won 1.3 miles 3/8 and won by 4 3/4 lengths. I mean, so that would insinuate that this horse will have no problem going 1.5 miles and can continue to go. Should he in South Florida, I tend to like. Sometimes betting Sugar He is a little bit like, Magic 8 Ball, and when he hits, it's really great. And sometimes when you think he's going to hit, it's just you're like, oh well, that didn't work at all. But I do like this horse quite a bit, and she's super consistent. I mean, outside of her debut, she's never missed the board. So I mean, if you're playing any sort of pickle wagers, I mean, I think she'd be very foolish to leave off of those for sure, even though she might be a short price. But 7-2, she ended up being my top choice in this one. And like I said, she gets back on the turf, put out a really good speed figure going longer. So I agree with you about avoiding adventuring. But I like the 2 here. But the 4 was very intriguing to me as well. Was probably kind of my second choice beyond the 2. So definitely see this race pretty similar to you guys.
Yeah, I would say Personal Best was my other B horse. So I think that horse makes a ton of sense. My biggest thing against Personal Best was just what you'd already kind of said, the Shook Barn, which can be very fluky and can be very inconsistent. And you just never quite know what you're going to get. And it always seems like the Shook Barn, especially in South Florida, takes more money than it should. So it feels like you're talking about right now, he's a 9% barn, and I can guarantee that horse is going to take money off the morning line. So it's that you never find value coming out of his barn. Not that you do with Pletcher, but Pletcher's a lot more consistent.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right. And then race 8, the inside information. This starts the Rainbow Six, which is not mandatory this day. It's mandatory the next day. I believe it's mandatory payout on Sunday for the Rainbow Pick 6. So Mark will probably have to play Gulfstream back-to-back days.
And can I just forget about Gulfstream existing until FloCal again next year?
And your 7-5 favorite is obligatory. And I mean, I don't think that she could have shown up in a worse spot. I love me some obligatory. I was all over obligatory in the Breeders' Cup. And I mean, if you're racing 7 furlongs and hoping to close, A, Gulfstream's not the spot, and B, this field ain't it. I actually kind of landed on a horse that I thought might get loose out there on the lead and might be your lone speed here in the 10, our Adios Jersey. Last time we covered a race that this horse was in, I think both Mark and I landed on this horse. Caleb might have as well. And this horse went from, I think, like something like 12 or 15 to 1 in the book. I think went off at 5 to 1. Yeah, won really easy at Charlestown. Yeah, I mean, you just see all those ones, and I just don't see there being a ton of other pace in here. I mean, there is the other speed horse to her inside. Was it the 2 horse Miss Speedy here? But this horse has shown speed going routing distances or running on a synthetic. If you look at her lone dirt try, the Raven Run, I mean, was out kicked early by a number of horses here. So, yeah, I don't really know how much speed this 2 is going to be able to show. This 2's got synthetic speed, it's got routing speed. I don't know if the 2's got dirt speed. So yeah, I loved our Adios Jersey here, and I think there's a good shot that this horse just goes wire to wire.
Yeah, I had a difficult time in this race with obligatory. If you're assuming that this is class relief off from her last couple, then she makes a lot of sense. But there's a lot of layoff lines there. All of a sudden, it seems like her best days were quite a while ago, and I just really wonder if kind of the beginning of her 5-year-old season, if she's just a little bit over this whole horse racing thing, and it's just kind of done with it. Now, with that being said, it's a horse that's 2 for 2 across the track, and it's got wins across the track at this distance. So she's a hard horse to just disregard. I just have a feeling that 7 to 5 is more like 4 to 5 by the time they go off, and I can't bet her at a really short price here, especially given her run style. The horse
Wait,
that
Mark, are you saying I should sound the alarm?
Yeah, I was gonna say it, but then I didn't say it. So and of course I'm beating up on a closer at Gulfstream Park, and you already mentioned the other horse in our Adios jersey, who is the one of the horses I liked in here. The other horse I liked is a closer, but it's a closer that seems to do well closing at Gulfstream, which is odd. And that's the 7, Very Quite Contrary. This is a horse that's 5-6 lifetime, has won 4 in a row, has looked really good in doing it, getting the class test here. You know, I don't know what's really not to like. I mean, that 112 time form fig in that last race, I realized it was going a mile, but that holds up really, really well here versus a lot of horses who, the 7 doesn't need much of a step forward from that performance to be an absolutely major player here. I realize probably not the run style that you want, but I'll take the 5-1 on a horse who loves to win instead of the what I think is going to be probably 4-5 on obligatory on a horse that I think might be a little bit done with the whole racing thing.
Yeah, so I see it similar to Mark, actually. And so I should note that I was also, it's funny that you bring up Charlestown Oaks, because I was there that night at Charlestown and loved our Adios jersey going into that race and made my 5-1, but I, like you guys, wished it was 12-1 or whatever the morning line was that day. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention this horse got popped for performance enhancing drugs from that effort and in their Georgina Baxter barn, and got transitioned to another barn. Hasn't really looked the same since leaving Baxter's barn. Not putting up nearly the same speed figures from a buyer speed standpoint. I agree this horse is very good, but I agree with you, Josh, that should get the lead without any issue. But ultimately, I went to the Mary Kite Contrary as well as my top pick. I'm fading obligatory here. I was all in on obligatory for the Breeders' Cup. I thought it was going to be great. I thought some of the scratches in that race actually hurt her chances a little bit because I was going to be more pace maybe in front of her, but she's a pace dependent horse that I just feel like in a race where there's really only one speed horse, it's hard for me to trust her. And so for all the reasons Mark said, I think Mary Quite Contrary makes a ton of sense. There's a horse that I think also, Mark, you mentioned the trip. If you go and look at her like second and third career races, she was actually pretty close to the pace. Like she can sit third, if she wants to. She can be within a length or two of the lead if it is a pace, I think. So, she certainly can sit a little further back and then make a run. The other horse I would bring up that I do like quite a bit is the 3 Colorful Mischief at 6-1 for Todd Pletcher with Irad Ortiz aboard. Second back from a layoff, second to Quite Contrary last time out. This is a horse, though, that has run against some excellent competition, has run up against Echo Zulu, has run up against Robbie and Wicked Halo, has gone up against really, really good fillies. And admittedly has not beaten them, but has at least run against that level of competition. Like I said, second back from the layoff, 6-1 in the morning line. I think that 84 buyer speed figure that she posted last time out was her best career effort. I actually think she can take a step forward from that. She will need to if she wants to win. But at 6-1 offers a little bit of value, but the 3-7 for me were the two interesting ones.
I do want to bring up Charles made a really good point here. He's talking about that equine herpes outbreak at Gulfstream. That you might have to expect a bunch of horses to scratch. There was a race today. It was like a dirt race, and I think there was 8 horses. Yeah, there was 8 horses entered and only 3 ran. And I don't know if that had to do with the herpes outbreak or something else. I wasn't paying super close attention to the racing today, but
so I think they have the barn on lockdown. So anybody who is in that barn area cannot be entered in the races. I don't know how they're managing beyond that. Are they allowing shippers to come in and run, or are you have to be on the grounds to be able to be eligible to run? It's a big difference depending on how they're managing it.
Yeah, but I think that Charles always brings up my my number one rules. You always got to be fluid right? And like we talk about stuff here and there, right? Like, oh, if this horse scratches, like this horse is gonna be low in speed, but like you always have to take that into account. It's always really tough, giving out like a pick 5 ticket or something right now, and then like one horse scratches, and all of a sudden it's like your entire approach changes. Or you watch we capped the late pick 5, and we watched the early pick 5, and speed's dead completely. Like, all right, well, I'm going to change how I think I play the later races. But it's always really important to see see what happens here. Who's the horse that debuted on Pegasus Day in the slop, absolutely freaked, and never ran back to that number again? Hidden Scroll. All
Oh,
right.
Oh
Remember Hidden
yeah.
Scroll? You
Oh
remember
yeah.
Hidden Scroll?
Yeah.
Yeah, you might see a
yeah.
Hidden Scroll effort early in the card, and then just completely, change your mind on how the track's playing. But yeah, that's a really good point, Charles. There was a situation there. I think they have it under control, but you never know, right? They might find another barn or something, another area, caught it, and all of a sudden you get a bunch of scratches. So yeah, that's a good call out there. Um, yeah,
I'll
I
also
don't know.
say you mentioned Josh. You mentioned the early races. I will mention that race 1 is one of the more intriguing races in my opinion, because 10 of the 11 entries, or 10 of the 12 entries, I should say, are coming off of a layoff. And so it is just it's really funny to see that everybody is coming off of a layoff, and like most of them are significant layoffs, like 6 months or more. And it's really funny. When I was going through capping that, I was like, who do I like here? And I was like, well, I don't even know if I like anybody in this race. So, but I saw somebody got the 3 cherries treatment, so I know you
Yeah,
like somebody at least.
yeah, the one on right away.
Yeah,
Just saw the good old E8 there.
Yeah, I always
yeah,
wondered what happened to Breaker of Chains. That horse has been gone for what,
yeah,
2 years or something.
almost,
Yeah, the
yeah,
horse
yeah,
that
yeah.
fell off the face of the earth, and was one I'm kind of interesting to see back here. I would say the other thing you talk about being fluid. This is South Florida this time of year. The chances of a random pop up thunderstorm or those kind of things
Mm,
are also very high. So you also have to kind of be careful. It stinks when it happens, but Gulfstream is a track that you cap it. There's, oh, it's going to be blue skies and sunny and everything. And then all of a sudden you find is they get a half an inch of rain in 15 minutes and everything comes off the turf. So, things happen. It's a little like Saratoga during the summer in that regard.
yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you guys want to mention about this card?
It's a fun card. It's gonna be interesting to see if all the major players stay in and the EHV isn't a problem. It's a really fun betting card. There's no horse here that I'm like, oh, I have to have to see him run or I have to bet him or anything. But it's a very good from a gambling product standpoint. It's a very good card.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I would
and
agree with that. Yeah.
yeah, we'll be doing a contest, a horse tourneys contest for sure, in the Discord. So if you're in the Discord, I'll be posting that probably sometime tomorrow. I just checked right now; it's not available yet to post. But we'll probably do a full Gulfstream card. And if you're not in the Discord, join up. And if you don't know what Discord is, just shoot me a message. Just shoot me a message on Twitter or wherever you can, and I'll just shoot you over the link. I don't want to tweet it out just in case, but yeah.
I don't know how Discord works, Josh. I don't understand it.
Really?
I don't. I mean, I have it on my phone, but I don't understand it at all.
Yeah. I mean, remember IRC? It's just IRC except for the modern day.
All right, I gotta figure this stuff out.
This is a chat room. It's just a chat room.
Just a chat room with a bunch of degenerate horse players who,
Well, that part I don't mind. Yeah, no, that's
what more
good.
could you want? It's
Yeah.
your people, and they're all
No, it
collaborative.
is.
And the great part is we break it out by rooms, so you can be like, "Hey, I want my people that are all playing Aqueduct," and there's 30 people in there chatting about Aqueduct on a Thursday, which was today. So
I
which
will
was fun.
say,
So,
I will say, low key, you bring up Aqueduct made me think of this, but like low key, maybe the best moment of Breeders' Cup weekend was when Josh and I and Caleb were standing around and Chad Brown was there talking to us and giving us
Chad's
the time of
chill.
day. And then one of his assistants like pulled him over so he could watch the one television that was showing Aqueduct at Keeneland to watch one of his horses. And he was like, "Oh, sorry, I gotta go."
Yeah, it was so funny. It's like we're like, why is he over there? And it's like, oh, it's the one TV showing Aqueduct right now.
Yeah, the number of times that I've been at Saratoga and either on the Sunday or something, and Chad goes strolling by, and Chad's funny because if you come up to him and tell me who's going to win this race, he'll just kind of play off and near you. But if you're like, oh hey, I really like such and such coming up in 2 races. How's how's the horse been training? He'll give you a straight answer.
Yes.
He doesn't lie, doesn't pull any punches. You get a legit, and the number of times he's been like, oh, I have 2 in there, such like, and he'll give you the pricier one and say, yeah, that horse has been training better. Oh, okay, cool. And they always show up. So he, he's, yeah. I realize there's all the stuff that happened this summer, which you have to have a conversation about. But, as far as on the track, he's a good guy.
It's really funny. I mean, mentioning Aqueduct, the one TV watching it, well, besides the golden hour I hit in the car on the way home from Keeneland Saturday, on Friday, we're at this. We shared this table with 2 couples who own horses, and one of them had a horse running at Turf Paradise, and was running on the fair circuit in California, and they thought that getting back to Turf Paradise was going to get a little bit of class relief and looked to be a big shot. I think the horse went off at like 7-2 or 9-2 or something, and I think the entire table fired at it. So in between Breeders' Cup races, we're in this, the swanky area, right? Everyone's wearing suits and stuff, and we're just sitting there yelling at an iPad, trying to get this horse home at Turf Paradise, and we all cashed some nice win bets there. So
it was class relief from the California Fair Circuit to Turf Paradise. Oh, there you go. Awesome.
Yeah,
good to know.
We had to sweat a photo. We just sweat a photo, but we got there.
That's
there.
Almost like sitting upstairs in Saratoga. We're in the 1863, but upstairs, the fancy portion of 1863, with Caleb's dad, who has his tablet out, and we're all playing Saratoga, and he's firing away Indiana Grand. And screaming horses home, and Peter Brandt is at the table next to us, and Peter Brandt kind of looks over at him and like looks back and like what's this guy screaming at? The race has already been going on. It was the funniest thing.
That's great.
All right, well, Matthew, thank you for filling in for Caleb.
Of course, anytime.
Where can people find you? What do you got coming out? Plug all your stuff here.
Yeah, so obviously people can find me on Twitter at the handle @FailToMenace. I have a lot of stuff coming out. I have a Oaklawn Stakes preview that's already out. The 3 stakes races, the Martha Washington, the King Cotton, and the Southwest did that as well. So that's out there. And then tomorrow morning, I'm going to drop the Capping the Card episode. 49 minutes, all 13 races. I give you my top pick, my top value play. I do that every week at a different track. So a lot of stuff that's out there. So if you follow me on Twitter @FailToMenace, you can find all that. And always love coming on with you 2 guys, and even Caleb too when he's around. But mostly you 2 guys. But don't tell him I said that.
It's all right. He won't watch this. So, Mark, what do you got going on this weekend? Skiing still?
Skiing Saturday, off Sunday, so I will. You had to bring up the pick 6K, Mando or Force Out down at Gulfstream. Like, oh great, I am actually going to be capping and playing that. Yeah, that's gonna happen. So no, it's that weird time of year where I will probably not be buying anything until first chance, last chance when we're in Vegas. Just kind of waiting for Derby preps to get going. So I don't know, playing a lot of deltas. You can see me cheering home a couple while we were on stream.
Yep. Yeah, I might fire at the $75 NHC this weekend, but other than that, I think I'll be pretty light. But catch us at onthewronglead.com. Obviously, at Twitter @wrong_lead. All of our Twitter handles are here in here, and we'll catch you guys later. Have a good weekend.